Two Carnival cruise ships colliding at port, scared passengers on board watching the massive ships crash into each other.
Gasoline spill that has a section of the ship channel shut down tonight.
Imagine the horror when two massive ships crash into each other, tearing through steel like it's paper. Ship collisions have serious consequences. They cause substantial financial losses, harm the environment, and put lives at risk. Watch on as we show you 15 of the biggest and most shocking maritime disasters caught on camera. From mechanical failures to human errors, each incident is a lesson in what can go wrong at sea. Get ready to see some unbelievable moments, as number 3 will leave you speechless. Number 15. New Zealand's cargo ship environmental disaster. Let's talk about a major environmental disaster in New Zealand that shook everyone. On October 5th, 2011, a cargo ship named Rena ran aground on Astrolabe Reef, just off the coast of Tauranga. This wasn't just any ship. It was loaded with over 1,300 containers and carrying 1,733 tons of heavy fuel oil. When it hit the reef, it started leaking oil, and boy, it was a mess. Initially, there were about 350 tons of oil that spilled into the sea, creating a slick that stretched for miles. But that wasn't the end of it. 3 months later, after weathering some rough seas, the ship literally broke in two, spilling even more oil and containers into the ocean. This disaster was dubbed New Zealand's worst maritime environmental catastrophe. It killed thousands of birds, polluted beaches, and led to a massive cleanup operation costing around $80 million. The community rallied together with volunteers helping to clean up the oil-soaked beaches, showing the spirit of togetherness in the face of disaster. While this environmental disaster shook New Zealand's waters, another catastrophe involving thousands of cars was about to unfold on the other side of the world. Number 14. South Korean car carrier capsizing off Georgia. Here's a story that feels like something from a blockbuster movie but happened in real life off the coast of Georgia. On September 8, 2019, a South Korean cargo ship carrying 4,000 cars started to tilt heavily. Imagine a giant ship loaded with cars begins to tilt under the weight, and then it capsizes. The scene was incredible to watch, yet terrifying. Everyone was holding their breath as the ship rolled over, wondering if the crew would make it out. Fortunately, the U.S. Coast Guard was on the scene quickly, managing to save the crew just in time. This incident resulted in the loss of all those cars and brought up questions about maritime safety and how we transport goods across the oceans. It's a reminder of how unpredictable the sea can be, even with modern technology. Just when people thought losing thousands of cars at sea was extreme, Mother Nature had a shocking demonstration of her raw power waiting. Number 13. Alwyn Meadows oil rig rogue wave incident. Back in 1995, something happened in the North Sea that made everyone rethink what they knew about ocean waves. The Alwyn Meadows oil rig was out there, facing a storm with waves hitting around 12 meters, which is already pretty scary. But then, out of nowhere, a wave came that was like nothing they'd seen before, 26 meters tall. Imagine a wall of water that high just coming at you. This wasn't just a big wave, it was a rogue wave, one of those rare massive ones that scientists thought were just myths. But this event proved they are real and can be devastating. Thankfully, the Alwyn Meadows rig was built tough and survived this encounter, but it definitely sent shockwaves through the maritime and oil industries about the real dangers of the sea. If you think a massive wave was scary, wait until you see what happens when two giant vessels filled with dangerous cargo meet head-on. Number 12. LNG carrier Genesis River collision with tank barge. Now let's dive into an event that happened on May 10th, 2019, involving the LNG carrier Genesis River. This ship was navigating through waters when it collided with a tank barge. The impact was so severe that it breached the cargo tanks on the barge, leading to a spill of petrochemicals. There was lots of chaos as the barge started to capsize, spilling its hazardous contents into the water.
Right now, crews are trying to contain a chemical leak following a collision in waters near Houston. A tugboat.
This wasn't just about the immediate damage, but the potential long-term environmental impact. The cleanup was intense, with teams working to contain the spill and protect marine life. It's a sobering reminder of how one mistake can have a ripple effect on the environment, local communities, and the economy, showing us why safety protocols are not just rules, but necessities. The damage from that collision was massive, but what happened next at this busy port would make even experienced sailors hold their breath. Number 11. MSC Armonia cruise ship dock crash in Honduras. Imagine you're on a cruise expecting smooth sailing, and instead, you witness your ship crashing into the dock. This happened with the MSC Armonia in Honduras. The ship was supposed to be pulling into port, but something went wrong, and it slammed into the dock. You can imagine the confusion, the sounds of metal against concrete, and the rush to check if everyone was safe. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt, but the damage was significant. What's interesting is that the captain was later cleared of any fault. The accident was pinned to a mechanical failure. This incident shows how unpredictable sea travel can be, even with all our modern gadgets and navigation systems. It's a lesson in humility for us all, reminding us that the sea still holds surprises, and we must always be prepared for the unexpected. Speaking of ports, let's move to a busy shipping lane where a massive ship would soon show everyone why size and control don't always go together. Number 10. Sea Eagle cargo ship incident at Iskenderun port. Here's a tale from the Mediterranean where the Sea Eagle, a cargo ship, found itself in a bit of a pickle at Iskenderun port in Turkey. On September 17, 2022, while unloading containers, this ship started to lean to one side. Before anyone could stabilize it, it tipped over, spilling containers into the sea. The scene was chaotic. You could see workers scrambling as the ship tilted and then capsized. No one got hurt, which was a miracle, but the damage was massive. Containers were bobbing in the water, the ship was half submerged, and port operations were disrupted for a week. It's a stark reminder of how delicate balance can be when moving heavy cargo, and how quickly things can go wrong without the proper precautions. That port incident was terrible, but what happened in one of Europe's busiest waterways in the next few minutes would leave tourists scrambling for safety. Number 9. Venice Canal cruise ship collision. Picture this: a sunny day in Venice, tourists enjoying the canals, and then out of nowhere, a massive cruise ship goes off course.
In Venice, where the accident happened, Seth, how are people locally reacting?
This happened in 2019 when the MSC Opera collided with a tourist riverboat in one of Venice's crowded canals. The cruise ship had lost control of its engine throttle, leading to a crash that could have been much worse. The riverboat was no match for the giant ship, and you can imagine the panic as passengers tried to stay safe. Luckily, injuries were minor, but the incident sparked a huge debate about whether these large ships should even be allowed in such a historic and delicate city. Venice's canals are narrow, and this accident highlighted the risks of modern tourism in ancient settings. While those tourists were still catching their breath, halfway across the world, a drunk captain was about to turn a normal day into complete chaos. Number 8. Russian captain's bridge collision in Busan. This story is from Busan, South Korea, where a Russian captain, unfortunately under the influence of alcohol, decided to drive his ship, the Sierra, straight into chaos on April the 28th, 2014. He wasn't just a little drunk, he was 3 times over the legal limit. Despite clear warnings and signals, he smashed into a yacht and then plowed into the iconic Gwangan Bridge. The aftermath was a scene straight out of a disaster movie, with a part of the bridge damaged. But the captain's response was almost comical if it weren't so serious. He claimed there was no collision. This incident led to a swift investigation and a reminder of why maritime laws are so strict about drinking on duty. The drunk captain's crash was shocking, but the next incident would show just how powerful large ships can be when they interact with smaller vessels. If you're enjoying this video so far, hit that like button. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on these maritime mishaps. Let's chat about the sea's surprises. Number 7. Norwegian escape tugboat incident. In 2015, during the Norwegians' escape journey from the shipyard in Germany to the North Sea, something unexpected happened. A tugboat assisting the cruise ship was caught in the immense wake and force of the liner, causing it to submerge briefly. Imagine being on that tugboat, feeling the power of the water as this giant ship moves past you. It was a testament to the sheer power of these modern cruise ships and a lesson in tugboat operations. Thankfully, the tugboat managed to resurface without any harm to the crew, but it was a moment that highlighted the raw physics at play when you're dealing with ships of this scale. If you thought that was a close call, wait until you see what happens when a massive ship meets a fully loaded cargo vessel. Number 6. Arena Monrovia cargo ship grounding. The Arena Monrovia had a rough day when it ran aground off the coast, fully loaded with containers. This incident was not just about the ship getting stuck. It was about what happened next. The containers on deck began to lean precariously, and before anyone could do much, some slipped into the ocean. The scene was dramatic, with containers teetering on the edge before falling, creating a surreal sight of metal boxes in the water. The crew was safely evacuated, but the environmental and economic implications were significant. Groundings like this lead to tough salvage operations and reminds us of the challenges of navigating in potentially hazardous waters. While that ship was going down, another vessel was about to create one of the most expensive accidents in Panama Canal history. Number 5. Panama Canal container ship accident. Let me tell you about a real eye-opener at the Panama Canal back in 2014. A huge container ship, while passing through the Gatun locks, veered off course. Now these locks are tight. There's not much room for error. The ship ended up crushing one of the mules, which are actually these cool little trains that help guide ships through the canal. The incident was all caught on camera.
You got hit hard.
Showing the ship literally bending the metal structure of the mule. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the mule was toasted. This accident raised some eyebrows about safety measures in one of the world's busiest waterways. It's a reminder that even with all our tech and planning, the sea can still throw us curveballs. The Panama incident was costly, but what happened next would make 2 cruise ship companies wish they'd picked different parking spots. Number 4. Carnival Cruise Line ship's collision in Cozumel, Mexico. Here's a story from Cozumel, Mexico, where 2 ships from Carnival Cruise Line had an unexpected meeting on December 20th, 2019. The Carnival Glory was trying to dock when it smashed into the already docked Carnival Legend. Imagine the chaos. Passengers leaning over the rails, crew members rushing to assess the damage. There was one minor injury, but the real damage was to the ships. The Glory got the worst of it, with a big gash on its side.
So that means when the Glory returns to port in New Orleans on Sunday, they'll board a new set of passengers and they will continue on.
This incident not only caused a spectacle, but also highlighted the challenges of maneuvering these floating cities and ports. It's a lesson in how even a routine docking can turn into a maritime headache. Those cruise ships got lucky, but the crew of our next vessel would have to fight for their lives in the open ocean. Number 3. Supply vessel sinking in Bangladesh. Now, this one's from Bangladesh, where on a seemingly normal day, a supply vessel met its match with a larger ship at anchor. This wasn't just a small bump, the impact was enough to sink the supply vessel. The date was June 15, 2017, and the waters near Chittagong turned into an emergency scene. The crew didn't have much time, but in a stroke of luck or sheer survival instinct, every single member managed to escape before the vessel went under. Nearby ships played hero, rescuing the crew. It's a tale of quick thinking and the harsh reality that the sea can be unforgiving, but human spirit and teamwork can prevail against the odds. Just when rescue teams thought they'd seen it all, an anti-whaling mission was about to turn into a fight for survival. Number 2. Addie Gill Anti-Whaling Vessel Collision. In what felt like a scene from an action movie, the Addie Gill, a ship dedicated to anti-whaling activism, was cut in half by a Japanese whaling vessel in the Southern Ocean on January 6, 2010. The Addie Gill, part of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, was on a mission to disrupt whaling, but this encounter turned deadly for the boat. The collision wasn't just a hit and run, it was a direct confrontation where the Addie Gill was sliced through, leading to its sinking. Thankfully, the crew was rescued by another Sea Shepherd ship. This incident escalated tensions in the whale war, showing how high the stakes can be when environmental activism meets industrial whaling. The whaling incident was intense, but what happened next would prove that even the most minor mistakes can lead to massive destruction. Number 1. Grand Rossi Ball Carrier Collision with Apollo S. Here's a story from the waters of South Australia where a massive bulk carrier, the Grand Rossi, met the much smaller tuna boat, Apollo S, with disastrous results on October 8, 2010. Picture this. The Grand Rossi, like a giant moving through the sea, couldn't avoid a collision with the Apollo S. The impact was caught on CCTV, showing the smaller vessel being obliterated under the weight and speed of the giant ship. It was like watching a toy boat crushed by a real one. Miraculously, there were no fatalities. The crew of the Apollo S managed to escape before their boat was destroyed entirely. This incident isn't just about the physical collision. It's a lesson in maritime awareness and the dangers of sharing the ocean with vessels of vastly different sizes. It's a moment that reminds us how quickly and unexpectedly things can go wrong at sea, even on what might seem like just another day. We've reached the end of this adventure. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe for more cool content. Don't forget to comment with your favorite part. Thanks for watching.